First contact fallout. The crystalline spires of the Celeran command ship Eternal Majesty sparkled against the backdrop of unfamiliar stars. High Commander Vextal stood motionless on the bridge, his iridescent scales shifting colors with each breath. The ship's sensors had detected something impossible. A vessel approaching through the void gates, a network of ancient pathways that only the Celerans had mastered in their 10,000 years of space travel. Unknown vessel emerging from Gate 7, High Commander, announced First Sentinel Kira, her metallic voice carrying the mechanical precision typical of their species. Configuration matches no known design in our archives. Vextal's secondary eyes narrowed while his primary set remained fixed on the holographic display. The vessel was small, almost crude by Celeran standards, yet it had somehow navigated the treacherous quantum currents of the void gates. Impossible. No primitive species could have decoded the gate harmonics. Scan again. But before Kira could comply, the unknown ship transmitted a signal that automatically decoded itself through their communication arrays. Another impossibility. The holographic display shifted, and Vextal found himself face to face with a being he'd never seen before. Bictal, soft-skinned, with only 2 eyes and peculiar curved lips. Greetings, I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Horizon. We come in peace and hope to establish diplomatic relations. Vextal's scales rippled with barely contained indignation. Not only had these creatures penetrated Celeran space, but they'd also breached their supposedly unbreakable communication protocols. You have entered sovereign Celeran territory through restricted pathways. Explain yourselves immediately. The human's expression remained calm, almost amused. The void gates, as you call them, are actually part of an ancient network we've been studying for decades. We've mapped quite a few of them, though I must say, your section of the network is particularly well maintained. Preposterous, Vextal hissed. The gates are Celeran technology, perfected over millennia. Your primitive vessel couldn't possibly. High Commander, Kira interrupted, her voice carrying an unusual note of concern. I'm detecting energy signatures from their ship that appear to be modifications of our own gate harmonic technology. But they've somehow integrated it with something else, something our sensors can't identify. Captain Chen's smile widened slightly. As I said, we've been studying the network. We found that combining our understanding of quantum mechanics with the gate technology created some interesting possibilities. We'd be happy to share our findings. Vextal's scales flushed dark with anger. These humans hadn't just stolen Celeran technology. They'd modified it, corrupted it with their primitive understanding. You will power down your systems and prepare to be boarded. Your technology will be confiscated and analyzed for violations of Celeran patents. The human captain's expression shifted, the smile fading, but her composure remaining intact. I'm afraid we can't do that, High Commander. We came here hoping to establish peaceful contact, but we're fully prepared to defend ourselves if necessary. You dare threaten the Eternal Majesty, a vessel that could obliterate your ship with a single pulse from its quantum arrays. Vextal turned to his weapons officer. Target their propulsion systems. Let's show these primitives the consequence of their arrogance. The Eternal Majesty's main weapon charge, its crystalline matrix humming with power. The beam lanced out across space and passed straight through the human vessel, as if it weren't there. Holographic projection, Captain Chen explained, her image still clear on their screens. Another interesting combination. Your quantum communication technology merged with what we call smoke and mirrors. The real Horizon has been scanning your ship for the past 20 minutes from a completely different position. Vextal's scales paled. Impossible. Our sensors would have detected us. Chen finished. Your sensors are designed to detect technology similar to your own. We found that sometimes the best way to hide is to use simpler solutions. In this case, old-fashioned passive sensors and heat sinks, combined with a bit of quantum masking we derived from studying the gates. High Commander, Kira reported, her voice tight with concern. I'm detecting multiple energy signatures appearing around us. They've surrounded the Eternal Majesty. 3 more human ships materialized around them, their designs similar to the Horizon, but each slightly different, suggesting rapid iteration and improvement rather than the standardized perfection the Accelerans prized. We didn't come looking for a fight, Chen said firmly, but we've learned through our own history to always be prepared for one. Now, shall we start over? We have some fascinating theories about the original builders of the Gate network that I think you'd find interesting. Vextal stood rigid, his mighty vessel surrounded by ships from a species that by all rights shouldn't have been able to match Celoran technology. Yet here they were, not just matching it but transforming it in ways his people had never considered. His primary eyes fixed on Captain Chen's image, while his secondary set tracked the positions of the other human vessels. You said you've been studying us, he said finally. For how long? Long enough to know that the Accelerans value knowledge and precision above all else, Chen replied. Long enough to understand that while your technology is incredibly advanced, it's also rather predictable. You perfect something and then standardize it across your entire civilization. It's efficient, but it leaves you vulnerable to anyone who can find a single flaw in that standardized system. The implication struck Vextal like a physical blow. These humans hadn't just stumbled upon Celoran space. They'd been methodically studying, analyzing, and finding ways to counter every advantage his people had spent millennia developing. You could have attacked at any time, he realized. Why reveal yourselves now? Because we're explorers first, warriors second, Chen answered. We've learned the hard way that it's better to have strength and not need it, than need it and not have it. But what we really want is to learn from each other. Your gate harmonics are incredible. We've only scratched the surface of what they can do. And I suspect our unconventional approaches might offer some new perspectives on your own technology. Vextal felt the weight of 10,000 years of Celoran tradition pressing down on him. His people had always believed that their way, the path of careful, methodical perfection, was the only way to advance. Yet these humans had taken their perfect technology and done something entirely unexpected with it. Perhaps, he said slowly, his scales shifting to the blue hues of contemplation, we both have something to learn here. That's what we're hoping, Chen smiled. After all, the universe is too big and too mysterious for any one species to have all the answers, even ones as impressive as the Accelerans. As the human ships maintained their perfect formation around the Eternal Majesty, Vextal realized that this was more than just a first contact situation. It was a first lesson. The discovery that perfection without adaptation was just another form of stagnation. And perhaps these humans, with their strange combinations of simple and complex solutions, had appeared at exactly the right time to help the Accelerans remember how to evolve. Adaptive tactics. The grand archive of the Acceleran Empire hummed with quantum processors as First Sentinel Kira moved through its crystalline corridors. After the encounter with the human vessels, High Command had tasked her with understanding how these primitives had managed to so thoroughly counter Acceloran technology. What she found in the archive's depths left her scales shifting between colors of confusion and concern. Display Analysis 7, she commanded, and the air before her filled with holographic data streams. The humans hadn't just appeared from nowhere. They'd been leaving traces for years. Tiny anomalies in gate harmonics, unexplained sensor echoes, minor power fluctuations in automated outposts. Each incident so small it had been dismissed as background noise, but together they painted a disturbing picture. They were testing us, she whispered to herself. Every incident was an experiment, probing our responses, measuring our capabilities. An astute observation, came a voice behind her. Kira turned to find High Commander Vextal entering the chamber, his scales now showing bands of deep purple, the color of troubled thoughts. But it raises an even more disturbing question. How did we miss it? Kira gestured at the holographic display, expanding a particular data set. I believe I've found the answer, High Commander, Look at our sensor protocols. The display showed the standardized detection algorithms used across the entire accelerant fleet. We designed our systems to detect advanced energy signatures, quantum fluctuations, anything that might match or exceed our technology level. And, Vextol prompted, though his shifting scales suggested he was beginning to understand. The humans used our own assumptions against us. When they wanted to hide, they didn't try to match our technology. They went simpler. Primitive optical sensors, basic radio waves, even simple heat sinks. Kira brought up another display, showing the analysis of the human ship's hull composition. Their vessel materials. They're not just armor. Each layer serves multiple purposes, absorbing or reflecting different types of scans. It's inefficient by our standards, but effective. Vextol finished. Show me their gate modifications. Kira brought up the sensor logs from their encounter. This is where it gets truly interesting, High Commander. They didn't just copy our gate harmonic technology. They changed its fundamental principles. Where we use pure quantum resonance, they've somehow combined it with something they call analog wave theory. It shouldn't work, but the display showed the energy signature of a human ship entering a void gate. Instead of the precise, crystalline patterns of Celeran vessels, their approach created rippling, organic-looking waves through the quantum field. It's like watching someone swim through space that should be traversed by walking, Kira observed. Less elegant, but more adaptable. High Sentinel, a new voice interrupted. A junior researcher rushed into the chamber, their scales flickering with excitement. We've decoded more of their communication protocols. You need to see this immediately. The holographic display shifted to show what appeared to be human entertainment broadcasts. Scenes of their history played out before them. Wars, disasters, technological advancement, and endless adaptation to changing circumstances. They don't just adapt their technology. Kira realized, watching as historical humans survived ice ages, plagues, and near-extinction events. Their entire civilization is built on adaptation. Every crisis forced them to evolve, to find new solutions. And now they've turned that adaptive drive toward space exploration, Vextol mused. While we spent millennia perfecting our existing technology, they were conditioning themselves to constantly seek new approaches. His scales shifted to deep blue, the color of strategic contemplation. What are their weaknesses? Kira manipulated the displays, bringing up analysis of human ship movements. Their technology is inconsistent. Each ship is slightly different, suggesting they're constantly modifying and experimenting. This makes them unpredictable, but it also means they lack our level of standardization and efficiency, an advantage we can't exploit, Vextol noted grimly. Because their very lack of standardization makes it impossible to find a single weakness that applies to all their vessels. There's more, Kira continued. Their power systems. They're using multiple redundant technologies. If one fails, they switch to another. It's wasteful by our standards, carrying so many backup systems. But we can't disable them all at once, Vextol finished. His scales rippled with colors of frustration and reluctant admiration. They've taken everything we considered a weakness, inefficiency, redundancy, crude technology, and turned them into strengths. A new alert chimed through the archive. More human ships had been detected, appearing simultaneously at multiple points across Celeran space. Each one demonstrated slightly different technological configurations, as if they were testing new variations of their hybrid systems. They're not just studying us, Kira said quietly. They're learning, evolving their approach with each encounter. The humans we face tomorrow won't be using the same tactics as the humans we face today. Vextol's scales settled into a solid purple, the color of profound realization. Then we face a choice. We can treat them as enemies, knowing that each conflict will only make them stronger, more adapted to fighting us. Or, Kira prompted, or we can learn from them, as they've learned from us. Vextol turned to the displays showing human history. Our civilization achieved perfection, but at the cost of stagnation. They chose a different path: constant evolution, endless adaptation. Perhaps there's wisdom in both approaches. As if in response to his words, a new human vessel appeared near the archive sensors. Its design incorporated elements of Celeran technology, but used in ways that defied their understanding of physics. It was neither purely human or purely Celeran in its approach. It was something new, something that suggested the possibility of evolution through cooperation. "High Commander," Kira said, her scales showing bands of cautious optimism, "I believe the humans aren't just testing our defenses. They're offering us a choice: remain perfect and unchanging, or learn to adapt and grow. Perhaps that's been their true purpose all along." Vextal watched the human ship's energy patterns, so different from the precise harmonics his people had used for millennia. "Then let us show them that even perfection can evolve. Prepare a diplomatic vessel, one equipped with both our quantum arrays and their swimming approach to gate travel. Let's see what happens when perfection learns to adapt." The Innovation Edge. The neutral space station Shadow of Dawn hung in the void between Celeran and human space. Its hybrid design, a physical manifestation of both civilizations' approaches to technology. Captain Sarah Chen stood at one of its viewing ports, watching as the Celeran diplomatic vessel emerged from a void gate in a display of perfectly controlled quantum harmonics. "Interesting modifications they've made," commented Dr. Marcus Wong, Earth's lead physicist for the diplomatic mission. He gestured to his tablet, which displayed real-time analysis of the Celeran ship's energy signature. "They're starting to experiment with our swimming technique through the gates, still too rigid, but they're learning." "That's why this meeting is so important," Sarah replied, turning from the window. The station's interior represented an unprecedented collaboration. Crystalline Celeran architecture merged with practical human engineering. "We need to show them that perfection and adaptation aren't mutually exclusive." The diplomatic chamber was a perfect circle, another Celeran preference, but fitted with human-style adaptive environmental controls that could adjust to any species' comfort needs. High Commander Vextal entered with First Sentinel Kira and a team of Celeran scientists, their scales shifting through patterns of cautious curiosity. "Welcome to Shadow of Dawn," Sarah greeted them. "We thought this demonstration would be more convincing than any amount of discussion." Vextal's primary eyes focused on the human delegation, while his secondary set scanned the chamber. "Your station's design is unorthodox. You've modified our crystalline architecture." Modified, enhanced, and combined it with other approaches. Marcus stepped forward, bringing up a holographic display. "For instance, your crystals are perfect for channeling quantum energy, but they're vulnerable to harmonic feedback. We added what we call dampeners, simple mechanical devices that absorb and redirect excess energy." Kira moved closer to the display, her scales flickering with interest. "But such crude mechanics should interfere with the quantum resonance patterns. That's what makes it brilliant," one of the Celeran scientists suddenly interjected, their scales flushing with excitement. "The dampeners don't just absorb the feedback, they convert it into useful energy. It's inefficient by our standards, but it means the system can never be completely disabled." Vextal finished, understanding dawning in all four of his eyes. Even a catastrophic quantum cascade would just be converted into basic mechanical energy. Sarah nodded. "That's the core of our approach. You've perfected individual technologies. We find ways to make different technologies work together, cover each other's weaknesses." The chamber's lights shifted as Sarah activated the station's main display systems. A massive hologram filled the room, showing the evolution of human space technology. "We started with chemical rockets," she explained. "Crude, dangerous, but they taught us invaluable lessons about redundancy and failure management. When we discovered quantum physics, we didn't abandon our old technology. We found ways to make it work alongside the new." The display showed human ships with their layered approach to technology. Quantum drives working in concert with fusion reactors, crystalline computers backed up by analog systems, Energy shields reinforced by physical armor. Inefficient, one of the Celeran scientists noted, but their scales showed colors of fascination rather than dismissal. Yet, adaptable. Each layer compensates for the weaknesses of the others. Marcus brought up new data, showing the results of their first experiments with combined human Celeran technology. Your quantum harmonics are incredible, far more advanced than anything we've developed, but they're also inflexible. Watch what happens when we introduce controlled chaos into the system. The display showed a test vessel using a hybrid dry system. Instead of the pure crystalline patterns of Celeran quantum fields, it generated swirling, organic-looking energy signatures that seemed to flow through space itself. You're deliberately introducing imperfection, Kira realized, her scales shifting rapidly between colors of shock and revelation. But the imperfections, they create new patterns, new possibilities. Exactly, Sarah confirmed. Perfect systems are predictable. Add a little chaos, and suddenly you have opportunities for innovation that perfect order could never produce. Vextel moved to the center of the chamber, his scales now showing deep blues of contemplation. Show me your gate modifications. How did you decode our harmonics? Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances. Actually, Sarah said, we didn't decode them. We didn't have to. We found another way to access the gate network entirely. The holographic display shifted to show the quantum structure of a void gate. You approach the gates like precision instruments, matching their harmonics exactly, Marcus explained. We saw them more like rivers. Instead of trying to control the quantum currents, we learned to ride them. The display split, showing the different approaches side by side. The Celeran method was precise, controlled, perfect, and rigid. The human method was fluid, adaptable, less efficient, but capable of handling unexpected conditions that would have disrupted the Celeran approach. This is why we revealed ourselves, Sarah continued. Your civilization has achieved incredible things through the pursuit of perfection. Imagine what we could accomplish together, combining your precision with our adaptability. As if to emphasize her point, the station's systems performed an automatic adjustment, Celeran crystals channeling power through human-designed circuits in a dance of order and chaos, perfection and adaptation. We've brought something else to show you, Marcus added, gesturing to a sealed container that his team had brought. We took one of your quantum processors and modified it with what we call fuzzy logic algorithms. It's less efficient at pure calculations, but it can solve problems that a perfect system would find impossible. The Celeran scientists gathered around as the hybrid processor was activated. Their scales shifted through a rainbow of colors as they watched it tackle problems in ways their pure quantum systems never could. Perhaps, Vextel said finally, his scales settling into new patterns that seemed to combine multiple colors at once. Perfection isn't an end state. Perhaps true perfection is the ability to adapt, to grow, to become something more than what we were. Sarah smiled. That's what we're hoping to prove. This station is just the beginning. Think of it as a prototype for what our civilizations could achieve together. As the two species continued their exchange of ideas, the shadow of dawn drifted in space, its hybrid systems humming with the combined power of human innovation and Celeran precision. It was more than just a diplomatic meeting place. It was a bridge between two approaches to understanding the universe and a promise of what they might achieve together. Battle of broken assumptions. The Celeran Grand Fleet emerged from multiple void gates simultaneously, 500 ships arranged in perfect geometric formations. Their crystalline hulls sparkled with pure quantum energy, a display of power meant to remind the galaxy why the Celeran Empire had dominated space for millennia. At their center, the dreadnought Eternal Perfection carried Grand Admiral Xerix, leader of the Conservative Council and staunch opponent of cooperation with humans. The High Command has gone mad, Xerix announced to his assembled fleet commanders, his scales fixed in the deep red of righteous anger. Polluting our perfect technology with primitive human modifications, abandoning 10,000 years of tradition for chaos and inefficiency. Today we restore the proper order. On the bridge of the Shadow of Dawn, Captain Sarah Chen watched the Accelerant fleet's approach with First Sentinel Kira at her side. "Your people certainly know how to make an entrance," Sarah commented, studying the tactical display. "The Conservative Council was bound to react eventually," Kira replied, her scales showing bands of concern and determination. "They believe any change is degradation. They'd rather attack than risk evolution." She paused, checking readings on the station's hybrid sensors. "The Grand Fleet's weapons are charged. They're not here to talk." "Good thing we came prepared." Sarah activated the station's communication system. "This is Captain Chen to all ships. Initiate Protocol Waterfall." Across the sector, human vessels began emerging from hiding spots that had concealed them from traditional accelerant sensors. They appeared from behind asteroids, from within gas clouds, even from what appeared to be empty space. Each ship was different, showcasing various combinations of human innovation and adapted Celoran technology. "Abominations." Grand Admiral Xerx's voice boomed across all frequencies. "Your hybrid ships are an insult to pure Celoran engineering. You will power down your systems and prepare to be cleansed." "Admiral," Sarah responded calmly, "we're transmitting data from our joint research projects. The combined technologies are producing results that neither of our civilizations could achieve alone. There's no need for conflict." "Silence," Xerx commanded. "The Grand Fleet will show you the superiority of pure Celoran technology. All ships, execute battle pattern perfection." The Accelerant fleet began moving with mathematical precision, their formation shifting into attack configurations that had been refined over thousands of years. Energy weapons charge, quantum harmonics aligned for maximum effect. "They're using standard combat protocols," Kira observed, her scales flickering with a mix of concern and anticipation. "Exactly as predicted." Sarah nodded. "Launch the boys." From the human ships, hundreds of small devices deployed, spreading out through space. The Accelerant fleet ignored them, their sensors dismissing the simple technology as irrelevant. That was their first mistake. "Fire," Xerx commanded. 500 quantum beams lanced out simultaneously, a display of perfect coordination and overwhelming force. But the human ships weren't where they appeared to be. The boys activated, creating a web of old-fashioned radio waves and electromagnetic fields that played havoc with Accelerant targeting systems. Their perfect formation suddenly became a liability, as ships struggled to compensate for sensor disruptions without breaking their carefully coordinated patterns. "Impossible," Xerx raged as his perfect attack struck nothing but empty space. "Find them. Use pure quantum scanning." "That's the problem with perfect systems." Sarah's voice came through clear despite the electromagnetic chaos. "They don't handle imperfection very well." The human fleet reappeared, but now they were inside the Accelerant formation. Their hybrid drives allowed them to navigate through the quantum turbulence that would have disrupted pure Accelerant systems. Each human ship targeted specific weaknesses in the Accelerant designs, weaknesses that had been standardized across their entire fleet in the name of perfection. "Admiral," one of Xerx's officers reported, scales pale with shock, "they're using modified versions of our own quantum dampeners. Our weapons, they're being absorbed and redirected." "Impossible," Xerx roared again. But he was watching it happen. Human ships were taking direct hits from Celoran weapons, their hybrid shields converting the energy into power for their own systems. The more the Grand Fleet fired, the stronger the human ships became. "Grand Admiral," Sarah called out, "look at your tactical display. Really look at it. We could have launched a devastating attack while your fleet was confused, but every human ship is using non-lethal measures. We don't want to destroy you. We want to show you a better way." On the Shadow of Dawn's bridge, Kira's scales shifted to show patterns that had never been seen before in Celoran history. Colors of change, of evolution, of perfect order learning to dance with creative chaos. "Your formation is broken. "Admiral," she transmitted to the Grand Fleet, "but your ships are undamaged. The humans could have destroyed them, but chose not to. Isn't that worth thinking about?" The eternal perfection hung in space, its perfect formations shattered, its pure quantum weapons useless against shields that turned perfection itself into a weakness. Around it, human ships demonstrated maneuvers that should have been impossible, combining Celeran precision with human creativity in ways that defied traditional combat doctrine. "Look at your sensors, Admiral," Sarah continued. "Each human ship is different, using slightly different combinations of our technologies. You can't predict them because they're constantly evolving. But they're not evolving to destroy. They're evolving to protect, to explore, to grow. Isn't that worth being part of?" Xerix stood on his bridge, watching as everything he believed about warfare, about technology, about perfection itself was proved wrong. His scales shifted through colors of confusion, anger, and finally, though he fought against it, wonder. "Your ships," he said slowly, "they're not just modified Celoran technology. They're something new entirely. That's what we've been trying to show you," Sarah replied. "The universe is too big, too chaotic, too wonderful to be approached with only one philosophy: perfect order, creative chaos. Why not learn to use both?" As if to emphasize her point, the Shadow of Dawn activated its hybrid systems, creating a display of quantum harmonics that was both mathematically precise and beautifully unpredictable. It was a dance of order and chaos, a symphony of tradition and innovation. The battle, if it could be called that, was over. The Conservative Council's perfect fleet had been undone not by superior firepower, but by the very adaptability they had dismissed as weakness. And in its place, a new possibility had been demonstrated: the power of perfection and innovation working together, evolving into something greater than either could be alone. Evolution through unity. 1 year after the Battle of Broken Assumptions, the Shadow of Dawn had grown into something its creators had never imagined. What began as a diplomatic station had evolved into a vast complex of interconnected structures, each section showcasing new possibilities born from human-Celoran cooperation. In the central chamber, Captain Sarah Chen and High Commander Vextal stood before a gathered assembly of both species, watching as their latest joint project took shape. "The Gateway Nexus is ready for its first test," Dr. Marcus Wong announced, his excitement evident as he gestured to the massive structure floating outside the station's quantum-reinforced windows. "It's neither a human design nor a Celoran one. It's something entirely new." The Nexus was beautiful in an unprecedented way. Celoran crystals arranged in mathematically perfect patterns formed its core, but these were surrounded by organic-looking structures that seemed to flow and shift. It was order and chaos in harmony, precision and adaptability working as one. "A year ago, I would have called this abomination," former Grand Admiral Xerix admitted, his scales now showing the new patterns that had become common among Celorans who embraced change. "Now I see it for what it is: evolution." Sarah nodded. "The Nexus combines Celoran quantum harmonics with what we learned from studying natural wormholes. Instead of forcing space to conform to perfect mathematical patterns, it adapts to space itself." "Show them," Vextal encouraged, all four of his eyes bright with anticipation. The gathered audience watched as the Nexus activated. Unlike traditional void gates, which torn precise holes in space-time, the Nexus created what looked like a living vortex. Quantum energy flowed in patterns that were both mathematically perfect and organically adaptive. Traditional gates require exact calculations and perfect conditions, Marcus explained. The Nexus learns and adjusts. It can create stable pathways, even through areas of space we once thought impossible to navigate. But more importantly, First Sentinel Kira added, her scales shifting through patterns of pride and excitement. "It represents what our species can achieve together. The Celoran pursuit of perfection gives it stability, while human adaptability allows it to handle the chaos of real space." The demonstration continued as test ships from both civilizations passed through the Nexus. Each transit was different, the gateway adjusting its patterns to provide the most efficient path for each vessel's unique configuration. It was a perfect example of how standardization and adaptation could work together. "We've received the long-range telemetry," one of the human scientists announced. "The Nexus is reducing transit time by 300% compared to traditional gates, while using 60% less energy. And because it can adapt to spatial conditions, it's opening up routes that were never possible before." But the Nexus was just the beginning. Around the shadow of dawn, other projects were taking shape. Hybrid ships that combined Cellaran precision with human innovation patrolled the sector. Research laboratories staffed by both species were making breakthroughs in fields ranging from quantum physics to biotechnology. The Conservative Council was right about one thing, Xerix reflected, watching a group of young Cellaran scientists working alongside their human counterparts. "This is changing our civilization. But change, I've learned, isn't always decay. Sometimes it's growth." Sarah smiled. "And you've changed us too. Humans have always been adaptable, but working with your people has taught us the value of precision, of taking time to perfect something instead of always rushing to the next innovation. Perhaps that's the greatest discovery we've made," Vextol suggested, his scales showing the complex patterns that had become the mark of the progressive movement in Cellaran society. "True perfection isn't a fixed state. It's the ability to adapt while maintaining your core principles." The station's hybrid systems hummed around them. Cellaran crystals channeling power through human-designed circuits, each making the other more effective. In laboratories and workshops throughout the structure, both species worked together, learning from each other, growing beyond what either could have been alone. "We've received the deep space reports," Kira announced, bringing up a holographic display. "The hybrid beacons we launched are showing signs of previously unknown spatial phenomena. There's so much more out there to discover, to understand. And we'll discover it together," Sarah agreed. "Not as humans or Xellarans, but as explorers, innovators, adapting and evolving as we go." Outside the station's windows, the Nexus continued its operation, its quantum organic patterns dancing against the backdrop of stars. Ships of both species passed through it, each transit slightly different, each journey teaching the system something new. It was a testament to what could be achieved when perfection learned to adapt and adaptation learned the value of precision. "The universe is change," Vextol observed, quoting an Earth philosopher he had studied. "By learning to change together, we become more than we were." As if in response, the Nexus created a particularly beautiful pattern, mathematical precision, and natural chaos combining to form something that neither civilization could have achieved alone. It was more than a technological achievement. It was a symbol of hope, a promise that evolution didn't mean losing one's identity, but growing into something greater. The shadow of dawn drifted in space, no longer just a station but a beacon for both civilizations. Within its halls, humans and Cellarans continued their work, each project building on the last, each discovery leading to new questions, new possibilities. They had learned that the greatest strength wasn't in perfection or adaptability alone, but in the wisdom to know when to hold fast and when to change, when to maintain precision and when to embrace chaos. And in the distance, the stars beckoned, holding mysteries that would require both human innovation and Cellaran precision to unlock. Together, they were ready to answer that call, not as separate species, but as pioneers of a new way forward, where evolution and tradition danced in harmony, and the future was limited only by their combined imagination.